Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku had to protect a villain. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The rain in Tokyo didn't cleanse, it only pressed down. It was a heavy, industrial gray sheet that smelled of wet asphalt, ozone, and old fires that had long since smoldered out into ash. It drummed a relentless, hypnotic rhythm against the skeletal remains of the city, hollowed-out skyscrapers, overturned trucks, and the endless miles of silence where millions of people used to live their loud, vibrant lives. Izuku Midoriya sat perched on the edge of a gargoyle atop a pre-war municipal building in the Shinjuku ward. He didn't feel the cold. He didn't feel the water soaking through the tatters of his costume, nor the way his Gran Torino's cape, now little more than a yellow rag, plastered heavily against his back. He felt only the hum. One for all was a furnace inside him, a star trapped in a ribcage that felt too fragile to hold it. But it was the fourth user's quirk, danger sense, that defined his existence now. It was a constant, low-grade migraine, a buzzing insect at the base of his skull that never slept. It told him where the malice was. It told him where the pain was. You need to eat. Ninth, the voice of the first user echoed in the back of his mind, soft but insistent. Izuku ignored him. He shifted his weight, the iron soles of his boots scraping against the stone. Beneath the metal mask that covered his face, his eyes were sunken, shadowed by days without real rest. He looked less like a hero and more like a revenant, a green-streaked ghost haunting the ruins of a society he had failed to uphold. The rain masked the sound of footsteps. Daigoro Banjo's voice, rough and funky, chimed in. Good for hunting. Bad for being hunted. I'm not being hunted, Izuku whispered, his voice rasping from disuse. I'm looking. You're running yourself into the ground, the second user said. His voice was always sharper, colder. If you collapse before we find Shigaraki, this was all for nothing. I won't collapse. Izuku stood up. The movement was stiff, mechanical. His body was a map of scar tissue and fatigue, held together by blackwood braces and sheer stubbornness. He looked out over the darkened city. The streetlights were dead. The only illumination came from the occasional flicker of a failing neon sign or the headlights of armored convoys patrolling the safe zones miles away. But here in the gray zones, it was pitch black. ZZT. The sensation spiked in his head. Izuku flinched, his hand flying to his temple. This wasn't the usual throb of a petty thief breaking a window, or the sharp stab of a civilian in panic. This was a serrated blade driving into his brainstem. It was cold. Predatory. Malice, Izuku breathed, smoke curling from the vents of his mask. A lot of it. Direction? The fourth user, Haikyuu Shinomori, asked, his presence merging with the sensation. North. Near the old metro lines. It feels strange, Shinomori noted. Chaotic. Not a singular target. A pack. Izuku didn't wait to analyze it further. He leaned forward and let gravity take him. As he fell toward the wet pavement 20 stories below, emerald lightning crackled around his limbs. Black whip exploded from his shoulders, black tendrils seizing the corner of a ruined office block. With a yank that would have dislocated a normal man's shoulder, he swung through the air, shifting into float. He became a blur in the rain, a streak of green light moving faster than the sound of the thunder rolling overhead. He didn't know who was in trouble. He didn't know if he could save them. He only knew that the buzzing in his head was screaming, and if he didn't stop it, the silence of the city would get just a little bit heavier. Kana Tsutsumi, formerly known as Lady Nagant, knew what it sounded like when a hunting dog caught a scent. She had been the HPSC's best hunting dog, after all. She knew the rhythm of the chase. She knew the heavy breathing of the predator and the frantic, erratic heartbeat of the prey. The problem was, tonight, she was the prey. She skidded around a corner, her boots splashing through a deep puddle of oily water, and slammed her shoulder into the rusted turnstile of the Naruma subway station entrance. A bolt of agony shot through her side, white-hot and blinding. She bit her tongue to keep from screaming, tasting copper. Her right arm, her beautiful, deadly rifle, was jammed. The biomorphic barrel was swollen and red, overheated from firing 50 rounds in under 2 minutes. It hung uselessly at her side, a dead weight. Damn it, she hissed, her voice ragged. She clutched her side with her left hand. Her fingers came away slick with blood that looked black in the dim light. Thump, thump, the ground shook. Not an earthquake. Footsteps. Heavy, wet, slapping footsteps that sounded like raw meat hitting concrete. Found you. The voice wasn't human. It was a gurgle, a distortion of vocal cords that had been stretched and twisted by science that had no business existing. Nagant forced herself to move. She scrambled over the turnstile, tumbling down the broken escalator into the dark maw of the subway station. She needed cover. She needed a choke point. She needed 5 seconds to cool her arm down so she could put a bullet between the eyes of the thing chasing her. She reached the bottom of the escalator and collapsed behind a concrete pillar. Her chest heaved. Her lungs burned as if she'd inhaled broken glass. She reached into the tactical pouch on her belt, her trembling fingers brushing against the cold, hard plastic of a data drive. The drive. It was the reason she was bleeding out in a sewer. It was the reason All for One had turned on her. When she had broken out of Tartarus, she had been ready to watch the world burn. She wanted to tear down the sham of a hero's society that had turned her into a murderer. All for One had offered her a target, the boy Midoriya. It seemed simple enough, but then she had seen the files. She had gone to a designated drop point to receive updated intel on the boy's location, a remote server room in an abandoned villain hideout. But being who she was, paranoid, trained, and untrusting, she had dug deeper. She found the contingency plans. All for One didn't want to rule Japan. He didn't want to reform it. He wanted to use the country as a battery, a massive quark farm to be consumed and discarded, leaving nothing but a husk. He planned to trigger a chain reaction of quark singularities that would level the island, purely to fuel his own immortality and expansion overseas. Nagant was a killer. She was a cynic. She hated heroes. But she was still Japanese. She still remembered the smell of the ocean in her hometown. She still remembered the taste of cold soba on a hot day. She wasn't going to let a demon in a suit turn her home into a crater. So, she took the drive. She stole the locations of his sleeper agents, the completion date for his body transfer, and the schematics for the final assault. And 10 minutes later, the support squad he had sent to assist her had tried to rip her head off. Screech! Metal tore against metal. Nagant looked up. At the top of the escalator, silhouetted against the rainy gray sky of the entrance, stood 2 shapes. They were Nomus. But not the mindless grunts she had seen on the news. These were sleeker, faster. Near Hyans. One was quadrupedal, hunched like a skinless wolf with a beak made of jagged bone. The other was tall, lanky, with arms that dragged on the floor, tipped with scythe-like blades. Traitor. The tall one gurgled. Master wants the disc. Come and get it, you ugly bastards, Nagant whispered. She forced her right arm up. It screamed in protest, the muscles twitching violently. She focused. She molded the flesh. Rifle mode. The barrel extended, steaming in the damp air. She didn't have the hair to make special rounds. She had to use standard bone rounds. She had 2 shots left before her arm seized up completely. 2 enemies. 2 shots. She stood up, stepping out from behind the pillar. The wolf Noma lunged. It moved with terrifying speed, a blur of muscle and teeth. Bang! Nagant didn't aim with her eyes, she aimed with her soul. The bullet flew true, spiraling through the air. It hit the wolf Nomu in the right shoulder. It didn't stop. The creature didn't even flinch. The flesh rippled, bubbling and knitting back together in an instant. Super regeneration. Of course, Nagant spat, eyes widening. The wolf Nomus slammed into her. The impact was like being hit by a train. Nagant flew backward, smashing through a glass ticket booth. Shards of glass rained down on her. She landed hard on the tiled floor, the breath driven from her body. The data drive skid across the floor, sliding 5 feet away from her hand. She reached for it. A side blade slammed down, embedding itself in the concrete inches from her fingers. The lanky Noma loomed over her, drool dripping from its exposed brain. Give. Nagant looked up, her vision swimming. She tried to raise her rifle, but her arm finally gave out, transforming back into a bruised, limp human limb. She was done. She was going to die here, in the dark, labeled a villain, while carrying the only thing that could save the country. The irony, she thought bitterly. The HPSC would love this. The wolf Nomu prowled closer, opening its beak to crush her skull. Die, it hissed. The air pressure in the station suddenly dropped. It wasn't a sound. It was a physical weight, a displacement of atmosphere so violent that the glass shards on the floor rattled. A shockwave of green lightning illuminated the dark station, brighter than a flare. Smash! The ceiling above the wolf Nomu exploded. Concrete rained down, pulverized into dust. Through the debris, a figure descended like a meteor. There was a sickening crunch of bone meeting enhanced iron. The wolf Nomu didn't just get hit, it was erased from its position. A heel, glowing with blinding energy, drove the creature's head into the floor with enough force to crack the foundation of the subway station. A shockwave blasted outward, blowing the rain and dust away in a perfect circle. Nagant shielded her eyes, coughing. When the dust settled, she looked up. Standing over the cratered remains of the wolf Nomu was a demon. He was hunched over, animalistic. Dark tendrils of energy writhed from his back like spider legs, stabbing into the concrete to anchor him. His costume was a wreck of dark green and black, torn and stained with mud. A yellow cape, tattered and heavy with rain, hung from his shoulders, but it was the eyes that froze her blood. Beneath the metal cowl, two glowing green irises burned with a feral intensity. They weren't looking at her. They were locked on the lanky Noma. The lanky Noma shrieked, pulling its scythe from the floor. Enemy! Hero! Kill! The figure didn't speak. He simply vanished. It was pure speed. One moment he was there, the next, the air where he had stood was occupied by a vacuum. He reappeared in the air above the lanky Noma. Black whip tendrils shot out, wrapping around the Noma's side arms. Get away from her, the figure rasped. The voice was distorted, deep, and layered with a terrifying distortion. With a roar, the figure twisted his body. The Nomu, which must have weighed half a ton, was lifted off its feet and swung like a rag doll. It smashed into a support pillar, obliterating the concrete. Nagant stared, paralyzed. She knew that costume. She knew those rabbit-ear cowls, even if they looked broken now. Midoriya Izuku, the boy she was supposed to hunt. The lanky Nomu recovered instantly, screeching. It launched itself off the wall, blades spinning. Kill! Midoriya didn't dodge. He stepped forward. The ground cracked beneath his boot. Manchester. He pivoted, his legs sweeping up in an arc of green light. Smash! He caught the Nomu in midair. The impact sounded like a cannon shot. The Nomu was launched straight up, crashing through the ceiling of the subway station and disappearing into the rainy night sky above. Silence fell over the station. The only sound was the dripping of water and the electrical crackle of one for all fading from the boy's skin. Nagant lay in the glass, clutching her bleeding side. Her heart hammered against her ribs. She watched as the boy turned slowly. He looked wrong. The file said he was a cheerful, optimistic student. A symbol of peace in the making. This thing in front of her looked like it hadn't slept in a year. He was vibrating with tension, his head twitching slightly as if listening to invisible flies. He walked toward her. His steps were heavy, deliberate. Nagant's survival instincts screamed. He's a hero. I'm an escaped Tartarus prisoner. I'm a villain. He's going to capture me. Or worse. She forced her body to move. She scrambled backward, her back hitting the turnstile. With a groan of effort, she grabbed the data drive from the floor and shoved it into her pocket. Then, she raised her left hand, her human hand, and reached for the hidden knife in her boot. Stay back, she choked out. Her voice was weak, lacking its usual cool confidence. Midoriya stopped 10 feet away. The green glow in his eyes dimmed slightly, revealing the bloodshot, exhausted human eyes underneath. He looked at her, really looked at her. He scanned her injuries. The blood pooling at her waist. The jammed, burnt rifle arm. The terror in her eyes. Danger sense was still buzzing, but it was confused. It told him she was an enemy. It told him she had bloodlust. But it also told him she was terrified. Your Lady Nagant, Midoriya said. His voice was flat, devoid of judgment, just stating a fact. And you're the Deku kid, she replied, gripping the knife hilt. Here to finish the job? Did the HPSC send you to clean up their loose ends? Midoriya tilted his head. The HPSC didn't send me. Nobody sends me. He took another step. I said stay back. Nagant yelled, though it came out as a cough. She spat blood onto the tiles. I'll kill you. I swear, I'll put a bullet in your heart. Midoriya looked at her jamming arm. You can't fire that arm. The barrel is fused. Nagant froze. He had analyzed her quirk status in seconds. Those Nomu, Midoriya said, gesturing to the crater where the wolf Nomu was starting to twitch, its regeneration kicking in slowly. They were trying to kill you. Why? None of your business, hero, Nagant snarled. Why did you save me? I'm a villain. I'm a murderer. Midoriya looked down at his gloved hands. They were trembling. I saw someone who needed help. That's a lie, she spat. Nobody helps people like me. Not without a price. No price, Midoriya murmured. He looked back at the wolf Nomu. It was pushing itself up. We have to go. That one is regenerating. And the other one will be back. The noise will attract more. He extended a hand toward her. The palm was scarred, the glove torn. Can you walk? Nagant stared at the hand. It seemed absurd. The world was ending. She was a monster. He was a vigilante teetering on the edge of insanity, and he was offering her a hand like they were classmates on a field trip. You're an idiot, she whispered. She tried to stand on her own, refusing his hand. She got to one knee, then her vision grayed out. Her legs turned to water. She pitched forward. She expected to hit the cold tiles. Instead, she hit something firm but slightly soft. Black whips caught her, cradling her gently, suspending her inches from the ground before pulling her against his chest. Midoriya held her up, his arms supporting her weight. He smelled like rain, sweat, and copper. Put me down, she slurred, her consciousness fading rapidly. Hold on, Midoriya said. He looked up at the hole in the ceiling where the rain was pouring in. Danger sense spiked again. Reinforcements were coming. Fourth, full cowling, Midoriya muttered to himself. I've got you, the voice in his head replied. Midoriya looked down at the woman in his arms. She was the enemy. He knew that. She had killed heroes. She had likely been sent to hunt him. But right now, she was just a person bleeding in the dark. Why? Nagant murmured, her head lolling against his shoulder, her eyes fluttering shut. Why save? Midoriya looked straight ahead, his jaw setting. Because the rain is cold, he whispered, mostly to himself. And nobody should die in it alone. He bent his knees, green lightning surging to 45%. Boom! They launched into the air, shooting up through the broken skylight, leaving the subway station and the roaring Nomu behind. They ascended into the gloomy Tokyo sky, a streak of green light carrying a burden of sins, disappearing into the labyrinth of the ruined city. 2 hours later, the hideout was dry at least. It was an old public library in the Nerima ward. The roof was intact, and the heavy oak doors kept the wind out. It smelled of old paper and dust, a scent that Izuku found strangely comforting. He had cleared a space in the reading corner, pushing aside overturned tables and piles of rotting books. He laid Nagant down on a sturdy wooden table. He had bound her hands. It was a necessary precaution. He used the length of black whip that he could sustain subconsciously, binding her wrists together, but not too tightly. He stood over her, breathing heavily. He had used the first aid supplies from his belt pouches, antiseptic spray, pressure bandages, and a coagulant gel. He had dressed the wound in her side. It was a nasty gouge, likely from the Nomu's claws, but it missed the vital organs. She had lost a lot of blood, though. Her skin was pale, almost translucent in the dim light of the battery-powered lantern he had set up. Izuku sat down on a chair opposite her, his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped. He stared at her. Kana Tsutsumi. The traitor of the HPSC. The woman who killed a fellow hero. Why were they hunting her? Izuku asked the empty room. Loose ends, the second user answered in his head. She knows something. Or she stole something. She was protecting her pocket, Izuku noted. When she fell, she grabbed at her pocket, not her weapon. He looked at the tactical pouch on her belt. He hadn't searched it. It felt invasive. But if she was carrying something dangerous, he needed to know. Check it. Ninth, the second urged. Sentimentalities will get you killed. Izuku hesitated, then reached out. He opened the pouch on her belt. Inside, there was a small, high-density data drive. It looked military-grade. He held it up to the lantern light. It was sleek black, with no markings. Data, Izuku whispered. Valuable enough to send 2 high-ends after, the 5th user, Daigoro, added. That's not a grocery list, kid. Izuku put the drive on the table next to her. He wouldn't hack it. Not yet. He would wait for her to wake up. He wanted answers from her, not from a screen. He leaned back, the exhaustion finally catching up to him. His eyelids felt heavy. The danger sense was a dull hum now, a background static indicating that there were no immediate threats within a 2-mile radius. For the first time in days, he felt a moment of stillness. He looked at Negan's face. In her sleep, the hardened killer look was gone. She looked younger. Tired. Just like him. You and I, Izuku whispered, closing his eyes for just a second. We're both just running, aren't we? The silence of the library was broken only by the sound of the rain outside, hammering against the walls, trying to get inside the vestige world. The realm of One for All was usually a place of swirling colors and indistinct mist, but tonight, the users were gathered around the 2 chairs where Yoichi, the first, and the second user sat. This is a mistake, the second user said, his arms crossed. He was a man of war, from an era where mercy meant death. She is an assassin. Trained by the Commission to be the ultimate killer. As soon as she wakes up, she will try to kill him. She's injured, Yoichi said softly. And Izuku saved her life. That counts for something, does it? The second scoffed. She's a pragmatic. If killing the 9th buys her freedom or safety, she'll do it. We should have left her to the Noma. Or at least turned her over to the police immediately. The police aren't here, Nana Shimura interjected. Her form was tall and imposing, but her face was filled with worry. The system has collapsed. If Izuku leaves her, she dies. That's not who he is. Who he is getting him killed, the second muttered. He sensed something, Haiku Shinomori, the fourth said. He was sitting on the floor, meditating. Through the danger sense. When he looked at her, the malice wasn't directed at him. It was directed at the Noma. And underneath the anger, there was despair. Despair doesn't make her innocent, the second countered. No, Yoichi said, standing up. He looked through the mist, as if watching Izuku sleeping in the chair in the real world. But it makes her human. And right now, Izuku needs to be reminded that there are humans left to save. Not just civilians. But the broken ones too. He's taking on too much weight, Nana whispered. The weight of the quirk. The weight of the villains. The weight of the world. That is the burden of One for All, the second said grimly. The power to save everyone means the responsibility to save everyone. Even the ones who don't deserve it. Back in the library, Negant woke up to the smell of dust. Her eyes snapped open. She didn't gasp. She didn't flinch. Her training took over instantly. She assessed her body, pain in the side bandaged, her limbs, hands bound, legs free, and her environment, dim light, books, silence. She sat up slowly, wincing as her side pulled. She looked down at her hands. Black tendrils of energy were wrapped around her wrists like handcuffs. They hummed with a low power. She looked up. Sitting across from her, in a wooden chair, was the boy. He was asleep. His head was bowed, chin resting on his chest. The metal mask was gone, retracted into the neck of his suit. She stared at his face. He was a child. His face was dirty, streaked with grime and dried blood. He had dark circles under his eyes that looked like bruises. His green hair was a tangled mess. He looked so small without the green lightning wreathing him. This is the HPSC's greatest threat? She thought. This broken kid? She looked at the table. The data drive was there. Sitting right next to the lantern, she looked back at him. He was out cold. I could kill him, she thought. I could snap the binding, its energy. But if I focus my quirk into my elbow, I could disrupt it. I could take the knife from my boot. One slid across the throat. Mission accomplished. Maybe AFO would take me back. Maybe he'd trade my life for the boy's head. She slowly swung her legs off the table. Her boots touched the floor. She stood up. The black whip tether extended, giving her enough slack to move a few feet. She reached for the data drive. Her fingers closed around it. Cold. Comforting. She looked at the boy again. He shifted in his sleep, his brow furrowing. He mumbled something. "Mom, sorry." Nagant froze. Her hand hovered over the knife in her boot. She remembered the feeling of the rain in the subway station. The feeling of being cornered. The certainty of death. And then, the warmth of being carried. Because the rain is cold. And nobody should die in it alone, she gritted her teeth. Her hand moved away from the knife. She sat back down on the table, the wood creaking slightly. Midoriya's eyes snapped open instantly. Green lightning sparked around his skin before he even fully lifted his head. He was on his feet in a microsecond, ready to fight. He saw her sitting there. Hands still bound. The drive in her hand. He relaxed, the lightning fading. He let out a long breath. "You're awake," he said, his voice hoarse. "You're a heavy sleeper for a hero," Nagant said, her voice dry. She tossed the drive in the air and caught it. "I haven't slept in 3 days," Midoriya admitted, rubbing his eyes. "How's the wound?" "It'll hold," she said. She held up her bound wrists. "This is cute. Black whip, right? The Hell Spider user had something similar, but yours is sturdier." "It's to keep you from shooting me," Midoriya said. "If I wanted to shoot you, I would have done it while you were drooling on yourself," she replied coolly. "You couldn't," Midoriya said. "My danger sense would have woken me up the second you had genuine intent to kill." Nagant narrowed her eyes. "Is that so?" "Useful trick. Why did the Nomu attack you, Lady Nagant?" Midoriya asked, his gaze hardening. "You were in Tartarus. You were with All for One." Nagant looked at the drive in her hand. She ran her thumb over the smooth plastic. "He promised me a world without false heroes," she said quietly. "He told me the current society was a lie built on thin ice, and he was going to break the ice so we could build something real." She looked up at Deku. Her eyes were bicolored, sharp and intelligent, but filled with a profound tiredness. "But he doesn't want to build anything. He just wants to break the ice and let everyone drown." She tossed the drive to Midoriya. He caught it, surprised. "What is this?" "The end of Japan," Nagant said. "Or the salvation of it. Depends on who uses it." Midoriya gripped the drive. "Why give it to me?" "Because," Nagant said, leaning back and looking up at the shadowy ceiling of the library. "I tried to kill those Noma. I tried to be the killer I always was. And I failed." She looked back at him. "You saved me. I don't know why, and I think you're naive for doing it. But you saved me." She pointed at the drive. "That drive has the location of his main body. It has the timeline. It has everything." Midoriya's eyes went wide. This was it. The information the pro-heroes had been desperate for. "But there's a catch," Nagant said. "What?" "I'm rigged to blow," she said casually. "All for One put a quirk in me." "Self-detonation?" "If I break the contract, if I spill the beans verbally, I go boom. I become a firework." Midoriya stepped forward, alarmed. "Then why?" "I didn't say the intel," she interrupted, tapping her temple. "I stole it. Physical theft. Loophole. But as soon as he realizes I'm alive and with you, he'll activate it remotely. Or send someone who can." She stood up, testing her legs. "We need to get this to someone who can decrypt it. Someone with a hardline that AFO can't jam. The police precinct in Shibuya has a bunker. Sakachi might be there." "Shibuya is 10 miles to a war zone," Midoriya said. "I know," Nagant smirked. It was a sharp, dangerous smirk. "And half the villains in the city probably have a bounty on my head now. And the heroes. Well, if Endeavor sees me, he'll burn me to ash before I can say hello." She walked up to him, until she was chest to chest with the boy. She was taller than him. She looked down into his green eyes. "So here's the deal, hero. I guide you. You protect me. If the villains show up, we fight. If the heroes show up, you keep them off me." Midoriya looked at the drive, then at her. He thought about his friends at UA. He thought about All Might. He thought about what they would say if they saw him protecting a murderer. Clean hands aren't what make a hero. He clipped the drive onto his belt. "Deal," Midoriya said. "Good." Nagant turned away. Now, get these ropes off me. I can't run with my hands tied. Midoriya hesitated. If I wanted to kill you, I'd use my feet, she said dryly. Midoriya sighed and dissolved the black whip. The energy faded into the air. Nagant rubbed her wrists. She picked up her rifle arm, massaging the muscle. It was still sore, but functional. By the way, she said, glancing at the window where the rain was still pounding against the glass. You look terrible. You really should eat something. We don't have time, Midoriya said, pulling his mask back up. The green eyes glowed to life, the cowl settling over his face. The dark Deku was back. Let's go, he rasped. Before the rain stops. Nagant watched him for a second. She saw the tremble in his hands that he tried to hide. He's breaking, she thought. But maybe, just maybe, he can hold on long enough to fix this mess. She followed him to the door. After you, kid. They stepped out into the night. The rain greeted them like an old friend, cold and unforgiving, washing over the pavement where their war would be fought. The rain had changed. An hour ago, it had been a torrential downpour, a violent assault from the heavens that sought to wash the filth from the streets of Tokyo. Now, as Izuku Midoriya and Kana Tsutsumi, Lady Nagant, moved through the back alleys of the Naruma ward, the rain had settled into a cold, persistent drizzle. It was a mist that clung to everything, turning the air into a suffocating gray soup that chilled the marrow of the bones. Izuku walked 3 paces ahead. He didn't walk so much as prowl, his movements jerky and efficient, conserving energy where he could. The green lightning of full cowling was dimmed to a faint flicker, a ghost light dancing across his iron soles. His head was on a constant swivel, the sensory input of danger sense a low, vibrating thrum at the base of his skull. It was quiet. Too quiet. Behind him, Nagant limped. She was trying to hide it, forcing a rhythm into her stride that mimicked health, but Izuku could hear the slight drag of her left boot, the uneven intake of breath through her teeth every time her weight settled on her injured side. They had left the library 10 minutes ago, fueled by adrenaline and a desperate agreement. But adrenaline was a finite resource, and reality was beginning to set in. Stop, Izuku whispered. He didn't turn around. He simply held up a gloved hand, fingers splayed. Nagant halted instantly, melting into the shadows of a vending machine that had been gutted for parts. Her rifle arm twitched, muscles rippling as the flesh sought to configure itself into a weapon, but she forced it down. What is it? A patrol? No, Izuku said, his voice distorted by the metal respirator of his mask. You're bleeding through the bandage. He turned slowly. The green glow of his eyes cut through the gloom. He pointed to her waist. The heavy compression bandage he had applied in the library was already dark, a blossom of crimson spreading across the fabric of her tactical suit. Nagant looked down, her expression annoyed rather than pained. It's fine. It's just a leak. I can make the 10 miles to Shibuya. You can't, Izuku stated flatly. He walked back toward her, invading her personal space with a clinical detachment that unnerved her. He knelt, inspecting the wound. The coagulant gel hasn't set. The movement is tearing the clot. If we keep walking at this pace, you'll pass out in 2 miles. If we run, you'll be dead in 4. I've worked through worse, Nagant muttered, though a bead of cold sweat rolled down her temple, betraying her. I once held a sniper position for 3 days with a broken rib and a fever of 102. You weren't fighting Hyanoma then, Izuku countered. He stood up, scanning the street. The buildings here were mostly residential, hollowed-out apartments with shattered windows. We need to stop, properly. We need to restabilize that wound and wait for the rain to let up so we can move without leaving a blood trail for the Noma to smell. We don't have time to play doctor, Nagant snapped, pushing off the vending machine. The longer we wait, the more time All for One has to realize I'm not dead. Once he knows, he hits the kill switch. Izuku froze. He looked at her, his head tilting slightly. The kill switch, the quirk he gave you. Airwalk. And the self-destruct clause hidden inside it, she corrected. I told you. I'm a walking bomb. Does he know where you are right now? Not exactly. The GPS in my suit was disabled when I went rogue. I crushed the transponder before I entered the subway, she explained, tapping a broken piece of tech on her collar. But he has other ways. He can sense the quirk factor if he gets close enough, or if I use it too much. And he has ears everywhere. Izuku weighed the options. If they moved, she bled out. If they stayed, they risked discovery. But moving with a dying hostage, no, a dying asset, was a tactical impossibility. There, Izuku pointed to a squat, concrete building across the street. It had heavy iron bars on the windows and a reinforced door that hung slightly ajar. That looks like a pharmacy or a clinic. It might have better supplies. And a basement. A basement is a tomb if they find us, Nagant warned. And the street is a shooting gallery, Izuku retorted. Come on. He didn't wait for her permission. He moved to her uninjured side, wrapping an arm around her waist to take her weight. Nagant stiffened, her instincts screaming at the contact, but she didn't pull away. She leaned into him, just a fraction, and they moved across the street together, two broken figures disappearing into the dark. The building was indeed a small clinic, looted weeks ago. The shelves were overturned, glass crunched under their boots, and the air smelled of stale antiseptic and mold. But the back room was intact. Izuku cleared a metal examination table, sweeping away debris with a swift motion of his arm. He helped Nagant up onto it. Stay here, he ordered. I'm going to secure the perimeter and find something to stitch that up. Nagant watched him disappear into the front of the store. She let out a breath she had been holding, her shoulders slumping. The pain hit her then, a sharp, biting agony in her side that made her vision swim. She gripped the edge of the table, her knuckles turning white. Focus, Kana, she told herself. Don't fade. She looked around the room. It was dismal. A poster on the wall showed a smiling All Might giving a thumbs up to a child getting a vaccination. The smile seemed mocking now. A relic of a sunnier, stupider time. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the data drive. It was small, innocuous. It didn't look like the end of the world. Why do you trust him? She whispered to the empty room. She wasn't asking herself. She was asking the part of her that had hesitated in the subway. The part of her that hadn't pulled the knife. Izuku returned a moment later. He carried a handful of sealed medical packets, a bottle of rubbing alcohol, and a heavy stapler-like device. Found a skin stapler, he said, setting the items down. It's not going to be pleasant, but it's faster than stitching and holds better for movement. Do it, Nagant said, lifting her shirt to expose the jagged wound. The skin around it was purple and angry. Izuku didn't flinch. He washed his hands with the alcohol, the smell sharp and stinging in the small room. He moved with a speed and precision that spoke of too much experience with field medicine. I'm going to clean it first, he said. This will burn. He poured the alcohol directly onto the wound. Nagant hissed, her back arching off the table. Her teeth ground together so hard she thought they might crack. She didn't scream. She refused to scream in front of a child. Breathe, Izuku instructed softly. Almost done. He picked up the stapler. Chunk. 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 Metal bit into flesh. Nagant stared at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster. 1, 2, 3. Done, Izuku said after the 10th staple. He applied a fresh pad and wrapped her midsection tightly with gauze. Nagant sat up, breathless, sweat drenching her hairline. She looked at him. He was already cleaning up the mess, wiping the blood from the table. You're good at that, she noted, her voice raspy. I break my bones a lot, Izuku murmured. You learn how to put yourself back together. He pulled a chair over and sat down, facing her. The distance between them was less than 3 feet. In the dim light of the clinic, the tension was palpable. This wasn't a rescue anymore. It was an interrogation. Talk to me, Izuku said. He removed his mask fully this time, placing it on his knee. His face was gaunt, his eyes intense. You said you have the locations of the sleeper agents. And the date. Nagant nodded. All for one is paranoid. He keeps everything compartmentalized. But he needed someone to coordinate the logistics for the final phase because he was too busy managing Shigaraki's body stabilization. He chose me because he thought I was broken enough to be obedient. He was wrong, Izuku said. He was almost right, Nagant corrected. She leaned back, supporting herself with her hands. I hated this society, Midoriya. I hated the HPSC. I hated the fact that I killed people to keep the piece looking shiny and clean. When he broke me out of Tartarus, I thought he was the wrecking ball we needed. But he doesn't want to build, she said, her eyes darkening. I saw the maps. I saw the energy projection models. He plans to overload the quark singularity points in the major cities. It creates a chain reaction. Chaos. Destruction. It generates fear, which he feeds on, but it also destabilizes the very bedrock of the country. He wants to turn Japan into a wasteland, rule over the ashes for a few years to harvest the strongest quarks, and then move on to the next country. Izuku's hands clenched into fists on his knees. He wants to consume everything. Exactly. It's not a revolution. It's a harvest. Nagant tapped the drive on the table. This has the coordinates of the trigger points. If we get this to the police, to Tsukachi, they can disarm the bombs, or the villains acting as bombs, before the signal goes out. And the date? Izuku asked. 3 days, Nagant said. The silence that followed was heavy. 3 days, Izuku repeated. That's not enough time, Nagant finished. Especially since we're stuck in a clinic in Nerima with 2 high-ends hunting us, and the greatest hero in Japan probably looking to arrest me. Izuku stood up and paced the small room. Tsukachi is at the Shibuya precinct. They turned it into a forward operating base. It has shielding against electromagnetic interference and quark-based surveillance. It's the only place we can upload this data to the central network securely. 10 miles, Nagant reminded him. Through the dark zone. We can do it, Izuku said. He stopped pacing and looked at her. But we need rules. Rules? Nagant raised an eyebrow. You're a villain, Izuku said. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of classification. And I'm a vigilante, technically. But I won't let you kill anyone. Not the villains chasing us. Not the heroes who might try to stop us. Nagant scoffed. If a villain tries to rip your throat out, you want me to ask them politely to stop? My quark is a rifle, Midoriya. It makes holes in people. You can aim for the legs. Shoulders. Weapons, Izuku insisted. If you kill someone while you're with me, I will stop you. Even if it means carrying you unconscious the rest of the way. Nagant studied him. He meant it. The look in his eyes was terrifyingly absolute. It was the same look All Might had in the old videos. The madness of the righteous. Fine, she said, raising her hands in mock surrender. No kill shots. Unless it's a Nomu. Those things are already dead. Agreed, Izuku nodded. No more fair game. But people, living people, we save them. Or we incapacitate them. You're making this harder than it needs to be, she sighed. But you're the one with the super strength. What about the heroes? If Endeavor shows up, he won't hesitate. He knows what I did. He knows I killed the former HPSC president. If the heroes show up, Izuku said, his voice dropping an octave, I'll handle them. You stay behind me. You don't engage unless I say so. You'd fight Endeavor? Best genist? Nagant asked, genuinely curious. Your own teachers? I'll do what I have to do to get that drive to Tsukachi, Izuku said. The mission is more important than my reputation. Nagant felt a strange pang in her chest. It wasn't pain. It was respect? It had been so long since she felt that for a hero. All right, Deku, she said, using his hero name for the first time without sarcasm. We have an accord. Enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? For now, Izuku said. Suddenly, Izuku flinched violently. He grabbed his head, his knees buckling. Midoriya? Nagant slid off the table, reaching for him. Don't touch me. He gasped, squeezing his eyes shut. The room seemed to warp. The shadows lengthened. Inside One for All, Izuku stood in the void. The clinic was gone. He was standing on a floor of smoke and colored glass. The vestiges were there. The second user stood directly in front of him, his arms crossed over his chest. His gauntlets were spiked, his face grim. You are making a mistake, Ninth, the second user rumbled. She has the intel, Izuku argued, his voice echoing in the mental space. She turned on him. She chose to save the country. She is a killer, the second spat. She is a weapon forged by the Commission and sharpened by All for One. Do you think she won't turn on you the moment it becomes convenient? The moment the pain becomes too much? She helped me with the bandage, Izuku said. She gave me the drive. A ploy, the second dismissed. To gain your trust. She needs a bodyguard. You are nothing but a meat shield to her. I don't believe that. Yoichi, the first user, stepped forward. His white hair flowed in the invisible wind. He placed a hand on the second's shoulder. Look at her soul, brother. It is clouded, yes, but the malice, it is directed inward. She hates herself more than she hates anyone else. Self-hatred is a volatile fuel, the second warned. It burns hot, and it burns unstable. We need her, Izuku said firmly. He looked the second in the eye. Not just for the drive. If we leave her to die, we become exactly what she thinks heroes are. Hypocrites. People who only save the good victims. This isn't about philosophy. The second shouted, slamming his fist into his palm. This is war. We are fighting for the survival of humanity. You cannot risk the fate of the world for one assassin. I can, Izuku said. The vestige world went silent. I can, Izuku repeated, his voice steady. Because that's what one for all is. It's power given to the powerless. It's the power to save. If I start choosing who is worth saving, I'm no different than all for one choosing who is worth taking. The second user stared at him. The red lines on his gauntlets glowed. For a long moment, the tension was unbearable. Then, the second sighed. He lowered his arms. You are stubborn, ninth, he grumbled. Reckless. Idealistic. And frighteningly like him. He glanced at Yoichi. Is that a yes? Izuku asked. It is a warning, the second said, fading back into the mist. Watch your back. And watch hers. Because when the world squeezes her, she will break. Make sure she doesn't take you with her. The mist swirled, and the vision ended. The clinic. Izuku gasped, snapping back to reality. He was on one knee, breathing hard. Nagant was standing over him, her hand hovering inches from his shoulder, unsure whether to comfort him or check for a seizure. You back with me? She asked, her eyes searching his face. Yeah, Izuku wheezed. He stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. Just checking in with the predecessors. Nagant blinked. The voices in your head? You really are crazy. Maybe. Izuku managed a weak smile. He checked his gauntlets, ensuring the bracing was secure. We need to move. The rain is lightening up. That means visibility is improving for us, but also for them. Route? Nagant asked, shifting into soldier mode. Izuku pulled a folded, water-damaged map from his belt pouch. He spread it on the examination table. We are here, he pointed to a red circle in Nerima. Shibuya is here. The most direct route is the highway, but it's open ground. Snipers and aerial Nomu will spot us instantly. Subways are blocked or collapsed, Nagant added. And after our little stunt earlier, they'll be watching the tunnels. Right. So we go through the gray area. Izuku traced a line through a dense cluster of commercial districts and industrial parks. The shopping districts. Narrow streets. Lots of cover. Lots of verticality. We can move rooftop to rooftop or cut through buildings. That area is controlled by the jailbreakers, Nagant warned. Muscular-souled crew. Violent types. Not organized but dangerous. Better than organized, Izuku said. Unorganized we can slip past. Or incapacitate quickly. If we run into AFO's elite guard, we get bogged down. Nagant nodded. Standard guerrilla tactics. Move fast, stay low, hit hard only when necessary. Exactly. Izuku pulled his mask up. The metallic click of the locking mechanism signaled the end of the planning phase. Are you ready? Nagant picked up her rifle arm. She molded the flesh, testing the transformation speed. It was faster now. The rest had helped. Ready as I'll ever be, she said. Izuku went to the back door of the clinic. He cracked it open. The smell of wet asphalt and ozone drifted in. He stepped out, and Nagant followed. The city was a graveyard of neon. Even without power, the shapes of the advertisements, massive cans of soda, smiling anime characters, logos of hero agencies, loomed in the darkness like ghosts. The rain slicked every surface, making the world shine in monochrome. They moved in silence. Izuku took the high ground, leaping from balcony to fire escape, using Black Whip to pull himself up silently. Nagant stayed on the ground level, hugging the walls, her eyes scanning the windows above. They moved in tandem, a vertical stack formation that covered both angles. They had covered 2 miles in 20 minutes. It was good time. Too good. Izuku landed on a rooftop overlooking a wide intersection. He crouched, his hand touching the wet gravel. Danger sense was quiet. He tapped his comms, which were linked to a short-range frequency he had handed Nagant, an old earbud from the clinic. Clear up here, he whispered. Clear down here, Nagant's voice crackled in his ear. But I don't like it. It feels like a trap. Keep moving. We crossed the intersection on my mark. 3, 2, BZZZT. The sensation hit Izuku like a hammer to the temple. Wait! He shouted, not over the comms, but out loud. Below, on the street, Nagant froze. She looked up. From the shadows of the intersection, figures emerged. Not Nomu. Humans. There were 6 of them. Ragged clothes, improvised weapons, chains, bats wrapped in barbed wire, a quirk that made one man's hands glow with searing heat. Well, well, a voice sneered. A large man with skin like cracked stone stepped into the streetlight's fading range. Look what the rain washed up. The traitor bitch. Nagant leveled her rifle arm instantly. Back off. I'm not in the mood. Big bounty on your head, lady, the stone man laughed. Boss says whoever brings you in gets a permanent spot in the shelter. Real food. Clean water. I'm worth more dead than alive, Nagant bluffed. AFO doesn't care about the condition. Maybe, the man grinned. But we want to have some fun first. Up on the roof, Izuku coiled his legs. He calculated the distance. 6 hostiles. Close range. Nagant was tired. Nagant, Izuku said over the comms. Don't shoot to kill. They aren't going to show me the same courtesy, she hissed back. I'm coming down. Izuku launched himself off the roof. He didn't land softly. He landed like a thunderbolt, slamming into the asphalt between Nagant and the gang. The shockwave knocked the front 3 thugs off their feet. Water sprayed upwards in a perfect ring. Izuku stood slowly from his crouch. Green lightning crackled violently around him, illuminating the terrified faces of the thugs. The stone man took a step back, his bravado shattering. Is that him? One of the thugs stammered. The ghost? Get lost, Izuku growled. His voice was terrifying, modulated deep and rough. Leave. Now. The stone man hesitated. Greed warred with fear in his eyes. There's 6 of us. He's just one kid. Bad math, Nagant said from behind Izuku. She stepped up, her rifle barrel resting on Izuku's shoulder, using him as a stabilizer. A bicolored scope unfolded from her eye. 2 of us. And I don't miss. The visual was striking. The feral, green lightning-wreathed vigilante and the cold, precision killer assassin, standing back-to-back against the world. Get them! The stone man roared, his skin hardening into granite. Smoke screen! Izuku shouted. Purple smoke exploded from his body, filling the intersection instantly. It was thick, choking, and impenetrable. Can't see! A thug screamed. Black Whip! Tendrils shot out into the smoke. There were sounds of impacts, wet thuds, grunts of pain, the clatter of weapons hitting the ground. Nagant stood still in the center of the smoke. She couldn't see, but she didn't need to. She felt the wind currents shift as Izuku moved. Whoosh! A thug flew past her, wrapped in black energy, and was pinned to a lamppost. Crack! Another was swept off his feet and suspended from a fire escape. In 10 seconds the street was silent, save for the groans of the incapacitated men. The smoke began to clear, drifting away in the rain. Izuku stood in the center of the carnage. He hadn't broken any bones. He hadn't killed anyone. The 6 men were tied up, unconscious or groaning, webbed to the surroundings. He turned to Nagant. We move, he said. Nagant lowered her arm. She looked at the stone man, who was hanging upside down from a traffic light, wrapped in black tendrils like a cocoon. You're efficient, I'll give you that, she said. They were amateurs, Izuku dismissed. Jailbreakers. Just desperate people. Desperate people are the most dangerous kind, Nagant murmured. I know, Izuku said softly. He looked at her. That's why we have to save them, too. He turned and began to run down the street. Nagant watched him for a second. The cynicism in her heart was a fortress, built brick by brick over 20 years of blood and lies. But watching the boy's back, watching the tattered yellow cape flutter in the wind, she felt a brick loosen. Just one. She shook her head, gritted her teeth against the pain in her side, and ran after him. The city of Tokyo had lost its verticality. To the average citizen, before the fall, the city was defined by its skyline, glass needles piercing the clouds, neon signs competing with the stars, a testament to human, and superhuman, achievement. But down here, in the guts of the wards where the evacuation orders had turned homes into mausoleums, the city was horizontal. It was a labyrinth of shadows, wet pavement, and the endless, suffocating stretch of the road ahead. Izuku Midoriya moved through this horizontal world like a phantom. He didn't run. Running wasted calories. He flowed. He vaulted over a crushed taxi, his movements silent, the iron soles of his boots absorbing the impact with practiced ease. The green lightning that usually wreathed him was extinguished, suppressed to keep his signature low. He was a shadow within shadows. 10 paces behind him, Kana Tsutsumi, Lady Nagant, struggled to keep the flow. She was a creature of perches, of high ground and long sidelines. Being down in the muck, trudging through ankle-deep puddles of oily water, felt antithetical to her nature. Her side burned with a dull, rhythmic throb, keeping time with her heartbeat. The staples Deku had put in were holding, but the skin around them felt tight and hot. Slow down, she whispered. The sound was barely a breath, but she knew his enhanced hearing caught it. Izuku stopped instantly. He didn't turn around. He simply merged with the darkness under the awning of a looted electronics store. Nagant caught up, leaning heavily against the store's shattered window frame. She checked her rifle arm. The biomorphic mechanism was cool to the touch, the flesh dormant. She had recovered enough hair to form perhaps 10 rounds. 10 shots. Against an army of villains and the ghosts of her past. We're making good time, Izuku murmured. His voice was a low rasp, distorted by the metal respirator. He sounded less like a teenage boy and more like a machine running on its reserve battery. We're walking into a kill box, Nagant corrected, scanning the rooftops. This is the Bunkyo ward. Lots of universities, lots of open courtyards. Sniper's paradise. If AFO has eyes here, they're watching us right now. Danger sense is quiet, Izuku said, tapping his temple. Your quirk detects malice, Nagant said, wiping rain from her eyes. A professional doesn't feel malice when they pull the trigger. They feel recoil. That's it. Can your spider sense detect apathy? Izuku turned his head slightly. The green glow of his eyes illuminated the rain droplets, falling between them. No. It can't. Then trust my eyes, not your head, she said. We need to get off the street. Cut through the buildings. It's slower, but we won't be targets. Izuku hesitated, then nodded. Lead the way. They broke into the side entrance of a massive department store. It was a relic of the consumerist era, 8 floors of clothing, jewelry, and household goods, now silent as a tomb. The air inside was stale, smelling of cardboard and mildew. They moved up the escalators, their footsteps echoing softly in the cavernous space. Mannequins, knocked over in the panic of the evacuation, lay in heaps like corpses. In the dim light, their plastic limbs looked disturbingly human. On the 4th floor, home goods. Nagant signaled for a halt. We rest here, she said. 10 minutes. I need to check the dressing. And you need to sit down before you fall down. Izuku wanted to argue. Every second they stopped was a second all for one got closer to activating the kill switch in Nagant's quirk. But his legs were trembling. One for all was a heavy mantle, and he had been carrying it without pause for days. 10 minutes, he agreed. They found a display of luxury bedding that hadn't been looted. Izuku sat on the edge of a mattress, keeping his back to a pillar. Nagant sat on a couch opposite him, stretching her legs out. For a moment, there was only the sound of rain drumming against the roof far above. Izuku pulled a nutrient bar from his pouch. He snapped it in half and tossed the piece to Nagant. She caught it, inspecting the foil wrapper. High protein, 0 flavor. The diet of champions. She tore it open and took a bite, chewing slowly. She watched him. He had lifted his mask just enough to eat, revealing the scar on his cheek and the hollows of his cheeks. He ate mechanically, staring at the floor. You're too young to look that old, Nagant said. Izuku stopped chewing. He swallowed hard. I'm not old. Just tired. It's the same thing in our line of work, she replied. She leaned back, resting her head against the couch cushions. Tell me something, Midoriya. Why are you doing this? And don't give me the I am here speech. I've heard it 1,000 times from heroes who were secretly taking bribes from the Yakuza. Izuku looked up. I want to save everyone. That's all. Everyone? Nagant raised an eyebrow. Even the villains? Even me? Especially you. Nagant scoffed, a harsh, barking sound. That's rich. You know who I am, right? I'm not just a villain. I was the HPSC's favorite pet. They pointed, and I shot. I killed corrupt heroes. I killed villains who were trying to surrender. I killed people who just knew too much. She held up her hands. In the gloom, they looked like claws. These hands are soaked in blood, kid. The peace you grew up in? The shining society of All Might? It was built on a foundation of corpses that I stacked. Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't look away. I know. You know? She leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. You know? You think you know, but you don't feel it. You think the world is black and white. Heroes are good, villains are bad, and sometimes good people do bad things. But that's not it. The whole system is gray. It's a sludge. And I drowned in it. I know the world isn't black and white, Izuku said quietly. I've seen it. I saw a gentle criminal, who just wanted to be remembered. I saw Stain, who killed to preserve an ideal. I saw Shigaraki. The name hung in the air like smoke. Shigaraki? Nagant frowned. The monster who wants to dust the country? What about him? Izuku clenched his fist on his knee. When I fought him, inside the vestige world, I saw him. Not the monster, but the crying child inside him. Underneath all that hatred, there's a little boy asking for help. Nagant stared at him. She waited for the punchline. She waited for him to say he was joking. You want to save Shigaraki, she said flatly. The symbol of terror. Yes. You're insane, she whispered. She wasn't insulting him. She was stating a diagnosis. He's beyond saving. Some people are just broken, Midoriya. You can't glue them back together. Maybe, Izuku said. He looked at her, his eyes soft but burning with an intensity that made her look away. But I have to try. Because if I just kill him, if I just ignore that crying child, then nothing changes. The cycle just starts over. Someone else will get hurt, someone else will fall through the cracks, and someone else will become a villain. He gestured to the ruined store around them. This, he pointed to the wreckage. This happened because we ignored the cracks for too long. We let people like Shigaraki, and people like you, suffer in the dark so we could live in the light. I'm done with that. I'm going to bring the light into the dark. Nagant felt a chill run down her spine. It wasn't fear. It was something she hadn't felt since she was a student at UA, watching the older students train. It was all. You really believe that, she murmured. You really think you can save everyone? I don't know if I can, Izuku admitted, his voice cracking slightly. But I have to try. Or else this quirk, this power, it means nothing. Nagant looked down at her hands again. You remind me of me, she said softly. Before the commission got their claws in. I wanted to be a hero. I wanted to reach out a hand, just like All Might. But then they put a gun in my hand instead. She looked up, her expression hardening again. The vulnerability was gone, replaced by the steel of the assassin. But desire isn't enough, Deku. The world is cruel. And sometimes, to save the sheep, you have to kill the wolf. You can't hug a rabid dog. I can hold it back, Izuku said firmly. I can muzzle it. But I won't put it down unless there is absolutely no other choice. And that, Nagant said, standing up and wincing, is why you're going to get us killed. She checked the magazine of her rifle arm. 10 minutes is up. Let's move. They moved higher. The goal was to cross via the rooftops to the next block, avoiding the open streets. They navigated through the dark labyrinth of the department store, moving toward the roof access. As they pushed open the heavy steel door to the roof, the wind hit them. It was stronger up here, whipping the rain into horizontal sheets. The roof was a landscape of HVAC units, water towers, and skylights. Beyond the edge, the city stretched out, a dark ocean of concrete. Clear, Nagant said, bringing the scope to her eye. No movement on the adjacent roofs. Wait, Izuku said. He froze. Danger sense was buzzing. Not a spike. A slow, creeping rise in temperature. Like water coming to a boil. Something's wrong, he said. It's not focused. It's everywhere. Suddenly, the air around them shimmered. Trap! Nagant shouted. She tackled Izuku, knocking him sideways just as a net of electrified steel cables sprang up from the floor of the roof. Snap hiss! The cables contracted violently. If they had been standing there, they would have been diced. Welcome to the spider's web. A voice cackled from the shadows of a water tower. Floodlights snapped on from 3 directions, blinding them. Izuku shielded his eyes, black whip exploding from his back to form a protective dome over Nagant. Heroes? Villains? Nagant yelled, squinting through the glare. Bounty hunters. Izuku replied. He could feel it now. The greed. The desperation. 3 figures stepped into the light. The leader was a woman with multiple arms, each holding a specialized weapon, a net launcher, a shock baton, a heavy pistol. Beside her was a massive man covered in mirrored armor that reflected the floodlights, making him hard to look at. The third was a scrawny figure perched on top of an AC unit, his hands glowing with purple energy. The traitor Nagant. The multi-armed woman shouted. And the vigilante kid. Jackpot, boys. We turn them in, we get a ticket to the safe zone. These are jailbreakers, Izuku analyzed rapidly. Escaped convicts. Not AFO's elite. But they're coordinated. Give up! The mirrored man roared. His voice was amplified. We've got the roof rigged. One wrong step and you're toast. Midoriya, Nagant whispered, crouching behind his black whip shield. The scrawny one. He's the trapper. His quirk is likely activating the rig. The big guy is a tank. The woman is support. I'll handle the tank and the trapper, Izuku said. You suppress the woman. But remember, I know, she grumbled. Don't kill the people trying to murder us. Go! Izuku dropped the shield and launched himself forward. He moved so fast he was a blur, a streak of green lightning cutting through the rain. He's fast! The mirror man shouted. He stepped forward to intercept, bracing himself. Izuku didn't hit him. He used FA gene to build up kinetic energy, then released it in a burst of speed, sidestepping the tank entirely. He went straight for the scrawny man on the AC unit. Protect the controller! The woman screamed. She fired her net launcher. Bang! A single shot rang out. The net launcher exploded in her hands. Nagant stood on the far side of the roof, smoke curling from her elbow. She hadn't hit the woman. She had hit the firing mechanism of the weapon. My gun! The woman shrieked. She switched to her pistol with another hand. Nagant fired again. The pistol was knocked out of her grip. Stay down! Nagant yelled. Meanwhile, Izuku was airborne. The scrawny man panicked, throwing purple orbs of energy at him. Stay back! Izuku spun in the air, dodging the orbs. Black Whip shot out, wrapping around the man's waist. Gotcha! He yanked the man off the AC unit, slamming him gently but firmly onto the roof floor. The glowing trap lines on the ground fizzled and died. The tank! Nagant warned. Izuku turned. The mirror man was charging him like a rhino. Detroit! Izuku muttered, pulling his fist back. He dialed the power down. 20%. Enough to crack the armor, not the man. Smash! He punched the mirror man in the chest plate. The mirror shattered. The man flew backward, skidding across the wet roof until he hit the parapet wall and slumped over, unconscious. 2 down, Izuku panted. Behind you! The warning came too late. The multi-armed woman hadn't given up. While Nagant was focused on the mirror man, the woman had pulled a hidden weapon, a grenade launcher. She wasn't aiming at Izuku. She was aiming at the floor between them. If I can't have the bounty, no one can! She screamed, insanity in her eyes. She pulled the trigger. Time seemed to slow down. Nagant saw the grenade leave the barrel. She calculated the trajectory. It would land at Izuku's feet. He was recovering from the punch. He wouldn't have time to dodge. The blast would blow him off the roof, or worse, shred his legs. Instinct took over. The HPSC training. The killer's reflex. Eliminate the threat. Nagant didn't think about the promise. She didn't think about the morality. She just saw the enemy and the solution. She shifted her aim. Not at the weapon. At the head. The bicolored scope locked onto the woman's temple. Die. She squeezed the trigger. The bullet exploded from her arm, a spiraling lance of bone hurtling toward the woman's skull. It was a perfect shot. It would kill her instantly. Thwip. A black blur intercepted the bullet 3 feet from the woman's face. Sparks flew. The bullet shattered against the hardened tendril of black whip. Nagant's eyes widened. The grenade hit the floor. Boom. The explosion rocked the roof. Izuku was thrown backward, tumbling through the smoke. The multi-armed woman was knocked flat by the concussive force. Nagant ignored the blast. She stared at the spot where her bullet had been stopped. The smoke cleared. Izuku picked himself up from a pile of debris. His costume was torn, revealing the dark undersuit. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead. He walked over to the multi-armed woman, who was groaning on the floor, dazed but alive. He kicked the grenade launcher away. Then he used Black Whip to bind her hands and feet. Only then did he turn to Nagant. The look in his eyes was terrifying. It wasn't anger. It was disappointment. He walked toward her, the rain sizzling against his skin. You took the shot, he said. Nagant stood her ground, though her heart was hammering. She fired a grenade at you. You were going to die. I can handle a grenade, Izuku said, his voice cold. I have danger sense. I would have moved. You were off balance. Nagant shouted, her composure cracking. I did what I had to do. That's what a partner does. They cover your blind spot. I told you. Izuku stepped closer, looming over her. No. Killing. He's a villain. Nagant pointed her rifle arm at the bound woman. She tried to blow us up. Why do you care if she lives? She's trash. Just like me. Izuku's black whip shot out, not to attack, but to grab the barrel of her rifle arm. He pulled it down, forcing her to lower the weapon. She's not trash, Izuku said, his voice trembling with suppressed emotion. She's terrified. She's hungry. She's desperate. Look at her. Nagant looked. The woman was crying. She was muttering about the safe zone and food for my kid. If you had killed her, Izuku whispered, her kid would be alone. And you would have just added another ghost to your collection. Is that what you want? More weight. Nagant stared at the woman. She felt the phantom weight of the hundreds of people she had killed for the commission. The weight that made it hard to breathe at night. Nagant's voice failed. She slumped, her rifle arm shifting back into a human arm. I just wanted to save you. The anger drained out of Izuku's face. He let go of her arm. I know, he said softly. Thank you for that. But you have to trust me. We save them. Or we lose ourselves. He turned back to the villains. He quickly checked their vitals. They'll wake up in an hour, he said. We'll leave them here. The police won't come, but maybe another group will find them and cut them loose. It's the best we can do. Nagant watched him work. He was tying a knot with gentle hands, hands that could punch through concrete. He stopped my bullet, she realized. He reacted faster than my bullet to save an enemy who tried to kill him. It was irrational. It was stupid. It was suicidal. And it was the most heroic thing she had ever seen. You're a pain in the ass, Midoriya, she muttered, wiping rain from her face to hide the fact that her eyes were stinging. I get that a lot, Izuku said, standing up. He offered her a hand. She looked at it. The hand that saved. This time, she took it. Let's go, she said. We're burning daylight. And I have a feeling the next dance won't be this easy. The streets below. They descended from the roof, leaving the unconscious bounty hunters behind. They moved into an industrial district, warehouses, factories, the skeletal remains of the Tokyo logistics network. The ideological clash had shifted. It wasn't resolved, not by a long shot. Nagant still thought he was naive. Deku still thought she was too quick to pull the trigger, but a line had been drawn in the sand, and for the first time, Nagant had stepped over to his side of it. Midoriya, she said as they walked through a narrow alleyway lined with shipping containers. Yeah? That thing you said earlier? About holding back the rabid dog. Yeah? If I turn, she said quietly. If All for One activates the quirk, or if I lose it and try to hurt someone I shouldn't, don't hesitate. Izuku stopped walking. He looked back at her. What do you mean? I mean, if I become the threat, she said, her eyes steel gray and serious. You put me down. You don't try to save me. You don't try to talk me down. You take the shot, because I won't let myself be used by him again. I'd rather die. Izuku stared at her for a long moment. The rain dripped from his chin. I won't kill you, Nagant, he said. Midoriya, I won't, he repeated. I'll save you. Even if you don't want to be saved. Even if it hurts. That's the deal. He turned and kept walking. Nagant watched his retreating back. A bitter, small smile touched her lips. Stubborn brat, she whispered, but she followed him. Deeper into the gray area, toward a dawn that felt a million miles away. Somewhere nearby, on top of a water tower overlooking the industrial park, a figure stood silhouetted against the stormy sky. Blue flames licked at the edges of his stapled skin. Dabi lowered his binoculars. He grinned, the staples pulling his scarred flesh tight. Found you, he rasped. The little hero, and the traitor. Behind him, a massive shape moved in the darkness. Something heavy. Something hungry. Let's go say hello, Dabi chuckled. I want to see what color she burns. The industrial park was a graveyard of rusted iron and silent machinery. Shipping containers were stacked like the monolithic bricks of a forgotten civilization, forming narrow canyons where the wind howled and the rain whipped in erratic, stinging sheets. It was the Koto Ward, a district of logistics and heavy manufacturing that had been abandoned weeks ago when the grid failed. Izuku Midoriya moved along the top of a crane, his silhouette barely visible against the storm-choked sky. Below him, Kana Tsutsumi, Lady Nagant, moved through the shadows of the containers. She was slower now. The adrenaline from the encounter with the bounty hunters had faded, leaving behind the cold, grinding reality of her injuries. Izuku's danger sense was a low, constant thrum, like a finger pressed against a bruise. It wasn't the sharp spike of immediate attack, but the oppressive weight of general hostility that permeated the city. Midoriya, Nagant's voice crackled in his earpiece. It was tight with pain. We need to cross the canal. The bridge is up ahead. I see it, Izuku replied, scanning the perimeter. It looks clear. But keep your head down. The sight lines here are too long. I know how to avoid being shot, kid, she retorted, though there was no heat in it. Izuku dropped down from the crane, landing silently on a stack of containers 20 feet above Nagant. He looked down at her. She was clutching her side, her breath puffing out in white clouds. She was running on fumes. We're almost out of the industrial zone, Izuku said, trying to inject some hope into his raspy voice. Once we cross the canal, we hit the residential blocks of Shibuya. More cover. And more eyes, Nagant muttered. I'd kill for a coffee. Or a morphine drip. Preferably both. Izuku opened his mouth to reply, perhaps to offer her another nutrient bar, but the words died in his throat. ZZZZK. The sensation didn't just spike, it screamed. It was a jagged, searing lance of agony that drove itself into the base of his skull. It smelled of burning flesh and absolute, unadulterated hatred. Down! Izuku roared. He didn't wait. He leaped from the container, firing Black Whip not at an enemy, but at Nagant. The black tendrils wrapped around her waist and yanked her violently backward. An instant later, the world turned blue. A torrent of azure fire, hot enough to melt steel, erupted from the darkness. It engulfed the spot where Nagant had been standing a millisecond before. The asphalt instantly liquefied, turning into a bubbling river of tar. The shipping container behind her glowed cherry red, then white, before the metal buckled and collapsed inward. Nagant hit the wet ground hard, dragged into the cover of an alleyway by Izuku. The heat wash was intense, singeing her hair and drying the rain on her skin instantly. What the hell? She gasped, scrambling to her feet, rifle arm already morphing. Izuku stood in front of her, green lightning flaring to 45%. His eyes were wide, fixed on the source of the flames. From the steam and smoke, a figure walked casually into the light of a flickering street lamp. He wore a long, tattered trench coat. His skin was a patchwork of healthy flesh and purple, stapled burns. Smoke curled from his shoulders. "Found you," Dobby crooned. His voice was rough, like sandpaper over gravel. He smiled, and the staples pulling his cheeks taut seemed to scream. The hero, and the traitor. "Isn't this a cozy little reunion?" Dobby, Izuku hissed. "Hey, Izuku," Dobby waved lazily, blue sparks dancing at his fingertips. "You look like trash. Being the symbol of peace is tiring work, huh?" Nagant stepped up beside Izuku, leveling her rifle. "League of Villains. You're far from your master's lap, and you're far from your cage, lady." Dobby's eyes slid to her, cold and dead despite the fire. "Master is very disappointed. He doesn't like broken toys. He sent me to incinerate the garbage." "You can try," Nagant spat. She fired. The bullet, made of her own hardened hair, flew true. Aimed right between his eyes. Dobby didn't dodge. A wall of blue fire erupted in front of him, instantly vaporizing the bullet before it could touch him. "Too slow," Dobby laughed. He raised a hand. "Let's turn up the heat. Move!" Izuku grabbed Nagant and leaped sideways as a jet of blue flames sighed through the air, slicing a shipping container in half as if it were made of butter. They landed behind a mound of gravel. "His fire is hotter than Endeavor's," Izuku warned rapidly. "Do not engage him directly. He'll melt your bullets." "I noticed." Nagant checked her ammo count. "He's just one guy. If we flank him, the ground shook. It wasn't an explosion. It was a footstep." Izuku's danger sense flared again, a different flavor this time. Not the sharp malice of Dobby, but a dull, mindless hunger. "He's not alone," Izuku whispered. From the shadows behind Dobby, a monstrosity emerged. It was massive, easily 12 feet tall. It looked like a walking kiln. Its skin was thick gray, and plated like armadillo armor, but between the plates, an orange glow pulsed. Its mouth was a vertical slit filled with grinding gears of bone. "Meat ash-eater," Dobby introduced, patting the Noma's massive leg. The heat radiating from Dobby seemed to be sucked into the creature, making it glow brighter. "A little gift from the doctor's reserve collection. He eats fire. And kinetic energy. Punch him, burn him. He just gets hungry." "Nomu," Izuku breathed. "A near high-end kill," the Nomu gurgled. Its voice sounded like boulders grinding together. "Crush, the gnat. Go get him, boy," Dobby pointed at Izuku. "I'll handle the lady." The Nomu roared, a sound like a blast furnace opening, and charged. It moved shockingly fast for its size. "Scatter!" Izuku yelled. The battle for the Kodo Ward began. Izuku met the charge head-on. He couldn't let that thing get near Nagant. F.A. Gene. 50%. He built up kinetic energy in his legs, crouching low, and exploded upward in an uppercut. His fist connected with the Noma's chin. Crack. It felt like punching a mountain. The impact shockwave blew the rain away for 50 meters. The Noma's head snapped back, and it stumbled, but it didn't fall. Instead, the orange glow between its plates flared brighter. It absorbed the impact, Izuku realized with horror. It converted the kinetic force into heat. The Noma swung a massive fist. Izuku dodged using float, the fist missing him by inches. The wind pressure alone cracked the concrete wall behind him. "You, strong," the Noma rumbled. Steam hissed from its vents. "More, give me more. I'll give you everything I've got," Izuku yelled. Black Whip shot out, latching onto nearby cranes and girders. He pulled, bringing tons of steel crashing down on the monster. Meanwhile, 50 yards away, Nagant was fighting for her life. She sprinted through the maze of containers, sliding under beams and vaulting over debris. Behind her, the world was burning. Dobby wasn't aiming. He was just unleashing hell. Come out, come out!" Dobby shouted, blasting a continuous stream of fire that turned the alley into an oven. "Don't you want to talk about the good old days? About how you murdered heroes for the greater good?" Nagant rounded a corner, her lungs burning from the superheated air. She spun, planting her feet. Rifle mode. She couldn't kill him. Deku's rule. But she could cripple him. She aimed for his knees. Bang! Bang! 2 shots. Dabi flicked his wrist. A wave of fire knocked the bullets off course. You've gone soft, Dabi taunted, appearing around the corner. The old Nagant would have put one in my brain by now. He thrust his palm forward. Prominence burn. A beam of concentrated fire shot toward her. Nagant had no room to dodge. She braced herself, crossing her arms, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Whoosh! Green smoke exploded between them. Smokescreen. The fire hit the smoke, dispersing slightly, the heat still searing, but the direct impact mitigated. A black tendril wrapped around Nagant's ankle and yanked her vertically into the air. Up here! Izuku shouted. He was perched on top of a stack of containers, the ash-eater Noma climbing up the side like a demonic gorilla below him. Nagant landed beside him. You're juggling too much, kid. I can handle it. Izuku grunted. He kicked a heavy generator off the roof, sending it crashing onto the Noma's head. The creature barely flinched, the metal shattering against its skull. Dabi is overheating, Nagant observed, staring down at the blue inferno below. His skin is tearing. He can't keep this output up forever. Neither can we, Izuku replied. He looked at the Noma. That thing gets stronger every time I hit it. I need to overload it. Or restrain it. Restrain, Nagant said. I can jam its joints. If you can hold it still for 3 seconds. 3 seconds is an eternity, Izuku said. But let's try. Below them, Dabi looked up. He wiped blood from his tear ducts. Get down here! Dabi screamed. He placed both hands on the ground. If you won't come down, I'll bring the whole place down. Blue fire surged into the foundation of the container stacks. The metal groaned. The rivets began to pop. The tower they were standing on began to tilt. He's melting the supports. Nagant yelled. The stack collapsed. Izuku and Nagant fell into the inferno. Izuku reacted instantly. Float. He grabbed Nagant midair. But the Noma leaped from the falling debris, catching Izuku in a bear hug. Got you! The Noma growled. Its body was searing hot, burning through Izuku's costume. Let go! Izuku roared. He couldn't use 100% without killing Nagant with the shockwave. They crashed into the ground. The Noma pinned Izuku. Nagant rolled free, landing in a puddle of boiling water. Dabi walked through the flames, approaching Nagant. He looked like a demon, his coat burning away, his staples glowing. Game over, Dabi rasped. He raised a hand toward Nagant, who was struggling to lift her rifle arm. Say hi to the president for me. Nagant looked at the blue fire gathering in his palm. She was out of ammo. She was exhausted. Is this it? She thought. At least I tried. Suddenly, the sky lit up. Not blue, orange. A massive pillar of fire descended from the heavens, slamming into the ground between Dabi and Nagant. The force was so great it extinguished Dabi's flames in a 10-meter radius. Flash fire fist. A booming voice echoed through the industrial park. Dabi stepped back, shielding his eyes. Well, well. Look who decided to show up. The smoke cleared. Standing there, wreathed in roaring orange flames, was Endeavor. His beard was blazing, his eyes furious. But he wasn't alone. Descending on red wings was Hawks, his feathers sharp as steel blades. And sliding down a massive fiber cable from a hovering helicopter was Best Jeanist. The top 3 heroes had arrived. For a moment, the battlefield froze. Endeavor stared at Dabi. His son. The source of his ruin. His fists clenched, the flames turning white-hot. Tuya, Endeavor growled. NG, Dabi smirked. You brought friends. Untouched. Hawks landed on a container, his golden eyes scanning the scene. He saw the massive Noma pinning a struggling figure. He saw Dabi. And he saw Lady Nagant, battered and bleeding, crouching in the mud. Nagant, Hawks said, his voice devoid of its usual casual lilt. You look like hell. Hawks, she acknowledged, standing up slowly. She didn't raise her hands. She knew better. Behind them, the Noma roared. Get off him! Green lightning exploded. Izuku, pinned under the ash-eater, finally let loose. A tendril of black whips shot into the Noma's mouth, expanding violently to force its jaws open. With a scream of effort, Izuku kicked the creature's chest. Detroit smash! The Noma was launched backward, crashing into a pile of scrap metal. Izuku stood up, panting heavily. His costume was shredded. His mask was half torn, revealing one wild green eye. He looked feral. Dangerous. He moved instantly to stand between Nagant and the newcomers. The tableau was set. On one side, the top three heroes. On the other, Dalby and his Noma. And in the middle, Deku and Lady Nagant. To the heroes, it looked damning. Deku? Best Jeanist called out, stepping forward. What is the meaning of this? Step away from the villain. Izuku didn't move. He stood in a defensive stance, his back to Nagant. I can't do that, Jeanist, Izuku rasped. Dalby looked at the scene. He saw the confusion. He saw the hesitation in Endeavor's eyes, and he laughed. It was a manic, broken sound. Oh, this is rich! Dalby cackled, clapping his hands. Look at this. The picture of heroism. The #1 hero's masterpiece. Protecting the woman who tried to destroy society. Shut up, Tuya! Endeavor shouted. Why should I? Dalby grinned. Look at them, Dad. Look at your precious Deku. He's not fighting me. He's fighting with her. He's turned. The pressure finally cracked him. He's joined the dark side to save his little girlfriend. That's a lie. Hawks shouted. Deku, report. What is the situation? Izuku opened his mouth, but Dalby didn't let him speak. Kill them, Ash Eater. Dalby commanded. The Noma recovered and charged, not at Deku, but at Endeavor. Jeanist, restrain it. Hawks, support. Endeavor barked orders, launching himself at the Noma. The battle reignited, but chaotic this time. Endeavor grappled with the Noma, their fires clashing. Hawks provided air support, peppering the beast with feathers. Dalby, however, didn't join the fight. He backed away, melting into the shadows. I'd love to stay and chat, Dad, Dalby called out, his voice echoing. But I think I've done enough damage. Enjoy the family reunion. And Deku, try not to disappoint your new master. Coward! Endeavor roared, blasting the Noma with a jet burn. The Noma, abandoned by its handler, went berserk. It began to thrash, releasing absorbed heat in massive pulses. It's going to blow. Jeanist warned, creating a net of cables. Midoriya! Hawks landed near the duo. We need to take cover. Nagant, you're under arrest. Surrender now and we can. No! Izuku shouted. He grabbed Nagant's arm. What are you doing? Hawks asked, bewildered. I have to go, Izuku said. I can't let you take her. Deku, listen to yourself. Hawks pleaded. She's a fugitive. She's working for All for One. Not anymore, Izuku said. But you won't believe me. Not right now. Endeavor finished the Noma with a massive prominence burn, incinerating the creature's head. He turned, breathing heavily, steam rising from his suit. He saw Dalby escaping. He saw the Noma dead. And he saw Deku shielding Nagant. The rage of losing his son again, combined with the confusion of the moment, made Endeavor snap. Midoriya! Endeavor bellowed. The flames on his shoulders flared up, turning the rain to steam. Step away from her. That is an order. Izuku flinched. The danger sense in his head was buzzing. It was looking at Endeavor. Threat. 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 She has intel, Izuku shouted back. Vital intel. I have to get her to safety. We will take her into custody. Endeavor stepped forward, his heavy boots crunching the gravel. The police will handle the intel. Step aside, they'll kill her. Izuku argued. If AFO finds out the heroes have her, he'll trigger the self-destruct. I have to take her to a shielded location. Now, you are acting irrationally. Best Jeanist stated, his cables weaving through the air, ready to capture. You are exhausted. You are compromised. We are here to help you, but you must comply. I can't, Izuku said, his voice breaking. I promised. Promised a villain? Endeavor scoffed. You have lost your way, boy. Endeavor raised his hand. A ball of fire formed. It wasn't an attack, it was a warning. A show of force to demand submission. But to Danger Sense, it was a loaded gun, and to Nagant, it was an execution. Nagant stiffened. She pushed Izuku slightly. Kid, go. Leave me. They won't kill you. I'm the one they want. Izuku looked at her. He saw the resignation in her eyes. She expected to die here. By the hands of the heroes she used to serve. No, Izuku whispered. He turned back to the top three. I'm sorry, Izuku said. Green lightning surged. Not to 45%. To higher. The air pressure dropped. Don't do this, Deku, Hawks warned, his feathers sharpening. If you try to take her, Izuku said, his voice cold and flat, I will stop you. Silence descended on the industrial park. The rain poured down, sizzling on Endeavor's flames. The symbol of hope was standing against the pillars of society. You're making a mistake, Endeavor said, his voice low and dangerous. Maybe, Izuku replied. But it's my mistake to make. Nagant watched the back of the boy in the tattered green suit. She saw his legs trembling. She saw the blood dripping from his gloves, and for the first time in 20 years she felt something warm in her chest that wasn't blood. He's really doing it, she thought. He's really going to fight the world for me. Endeavor, Genus said softly. He is serious. Then we treat him as a hostile until he is subdued, Endeavor decided grimly. Hawks. Genus. Formation B. Understood, Genus sighed. Sorry, kid, Hawks murmured. The three heroes took combat stances. Izuku took a deep breath. He grabbed a smoke bomb from his belt. Nagant, he whispered. On my signal. Hold on tight. I'm with you, hero, she replied, gripping her rifle arm. Izuku pulled the pin. Smoke screen. Purple smoke exploded, filling the canyon of containers. At the same moment, Izuku activated FA Gene and Blacklip. The chase was on.